many ways, we think that leadership is something that we do on the outside, but it's really a function of who we are on the inside. Winning leadership truly begins with self-leadership. There's an old cliche that says, you can preach a better sermon by who you are than what you say. And the recipients of tonight's awards are certainly exemplary in self-leadership. They're all folks who are great examples of reaching out. And the common thread that I continue to hear in all of them this evening is that these are folks who have outstanding attitudes, folks who help others, they inspire others to help them succeed. The main difference that I see between an average leader and a winning leader lies in how they lead. Because average leaders tend to depend a little too heavily on leading by their position. In other words, by that title that accompanies their name. Whereas winning leaders, they lead by truly inspiring others, and they lead by example. Winning leaders understand for sure that leadership isn't just something that occurs in name alone. Because truth be told, sometimes winning leaders have no title, right? At the end of the day, the way I see it, or rather, in my humble opinion, valuable work that must be done for the greater good of a company should never be beneath even the highest ranking member. Tonight, I've heard a different kind of story. Stories of folks who are truly winning leaders, folks who are willing to roll up their sleeves and do whatever is necessary to get the job done. Folks who understand that leading by title is out, leading by example is definitely in. Chris Springer, Dwight Gates, I hope you don't mind me picking on you for just a moment, because as up-and-coming leaders, your stories are among great examples of folks who are doing what they can to make good things happen for the greater good of the company. But for all of those who received awards tonight, you stand out, all of you. You stand out for going above and beyond with passion and with professionalism. And the rest of us here this evening can certainly learn from your example. The other distinct difference that I see between an average leader and a winning leader boils down to their demeanor. Raise your hand if you've ever been on a flight with turbulence. Oh wow, most of you. Okay. When you are on a flight with turbulence, isn't the pilot's tone of voice important? Absolutely, absolutely. You know, I've spent the past few years traveling quite a bit, and recently I was on a 12-hour flight back to the States. We were going through some very bumpy air. The plane was shaking pretty badly. And I remember my heart was sinking with fear. And when I looked around, everyone was grabbing onto their seats with tension and fear in their eyes. And all of a sudden, the pilot gets onto the intercom and says calmly, "Ladies and gentlemen, we've just hit some pretty bumpy air over the Atlantic Ocean. In the next couple of minutes, we're going to pick up more speed to ride us safely through this bumpy air. So relax, fasten your seatbelts, because a smoother ride awaits us in just a minute." Collectively, we all sighed with relief, right? Can you imagine how you might have felt on my 12-hour flight with all that turbulence if instead of hearing that reassuring voice over the intercom, the pilot got on and said, "Oh God, hold tight, cross your fingers." Right? Tonight, as I mentioned, we are celebrating winning leadership. While average leaders get visibly distraught and panicked during stormy times, or when faced with unforeseen obstacles and changes, winning leaders, they rise up. They rise up and they lead with confidence and with calmness. Why? Because they know that there are people around them depending on them to keep things as positive and on target. The reality is every single one of us in this room, whether you work for JLG or not, we are all just like that pilot. In our personal and professional lives, we are responsible for keeping our environment around us as positive and as drama-free as possible. Because people are watching what we do, listening for our tone. I know that day my pilot couldn't control the turbulence that we were experiencing in the plane, but he absolutely had control over his reaction to it, which in turn created a better situation in the air for us, even though the plane was still shaking. As a company, I believe that it's not about how good you are today, JLG, because you're good. You're awesome. It's about how great you can be tomorrow because of who you choose to be today. And a lot of that boils down to the attitudes and the perspectives that we bring to life and work each and every day. I remember when my father passed away a few years ago. Being a daddy's girl, his loss affected me greatly. And in dealing with his loss, I realized that I had two choices facing me. I could either spend the rest of my days in a dark room on a dark cloud, wishing that he had never left me. Or I could spend the rest of my life being grateful for the time that we did get to spend together. The most important thing that I realized was that I needed to commit to a life that would make him smile upon me with pride. So that was my choice. Carrying a positive attitude and changing the way we look at things, these are choices available to all of us, aren't they? Absolutely. So the next time you find yourself in a negative situation at work or at home, I want to challenge you, like the 92-year-old woman, to change the way you look at things. And I guarantee it's going to better empower you to deal with what lies ahead.